Hello, my name is Zachary Earl, and this is my persuasive speech. Many drugs are used inside of today's society. Some drugs, like alcohol and tobacco, are used for recreational purposes, while other drugs, like antibiotics, are used for medical purposes. There's one drug out there right now that many states have legalized due to stigma that's been around it for many years. However, some other states have completely legalized this drug because science has been stating about this drug for several years that all those stigmas are wrong and that this particular drug has so many benefits. That drug is marijuana. Unfortunately, with science, the stigmas around marijuana has been dying down quite a bit, but there's still many states that have completely banned its use, either for recreational or medical use. There's currently a bill being tossed around inside of Congress right now called the MORE Act. And that act should legalize marijuana on a federal level, meaning it's on the same level as alcohol and tobacco, or at least it's in the same categories as that, meaning it's not nearly so looked down upon instead of a federal level. And that's why the MORE Act is something that needs to be passed. Uh, Throughout my speech, I'll be explaining to you why I think you should support the MORE Act. First, I'll explain very briefly the science behind marijuana and what science says marijuana is, isn't, and is good for. Then I'll explain all the benefits that states that have legalized marijuana are currently receiving from the people who smoke marijuana. Finally, I'll review exactly what the MORE Act does and how it'll benefit the United States. Let's get started. To begin, lots of scientific research has shown very positive results centering around marijuana. When people smoke marijuana, recreationally speaking, they end up feeling states of happiness and relaxation. This is wonderful in today's society, where a lot of the people once again in today's society have been displaying high levels of depression and high levels of stress. Uh, Marijuana would be an excellent counter to depression and stress. One of my friends has had depression for several years, and he was diagnosed with it back when he was in high school. And he wasn't able to afford medication to fix his depression or to temporarily fix it. However, the very instant he reached the prime age of 21 and started smoking marijuana, he described that he's been happier than he's ever felt. And he's one of tens of millions of people who suffer from depression almost on a daily basis. And honestly speaking, if a person can get a really good fix to their depression from marijuana, they should probably be able to smoke it. And unfortunately, that's not really something that most doctors can prescribe on a medical level. It's mostly used on a recreational level. Speaking of medically, marijuana helps with Tourette's, Parkinson's, osteoporosis, arthritis, and other major medical issues, according to Herbonaut. Marijuana helps with several issues, like I previously stated, and not allowing the usage of it in a medical manner is taking away from millions of people who need that kind of treatment, who need different kinds of drugs, who can't pay for prescription drugs. So not only has it been a replacement for prescription drugs because it just has so many uses, it's also been able to replace other harsher drugs like heroin and cocaine. There was a study from Herbonaut that specifically stated that many people who were not many, but a fairly good amount of people who were taking heroin, cocaine, crack, and other harsher drugs have been reduced when marijuana was legalized because they've switched over to marijuana, which is overall a much healthier and less horrible drug. I would much rather my neighbor be smoking marijuana than taking crack. Unfortunately, not all the research has been completed yet. While there's still many studies that display time after time that marijuana is overall good, every single fact that has been stated about marijuana only has one or two studies about it saying this is true. While it's generally accepted that you need several studies before you can really say this one claim is true. With that being said, almost every single study has had positive results around marijuana, meaning it's quite unlikely that marijuana is unhealthy for you. Marijuana has been shown over and over again to be great for an individual person, either medically or recreationally. However, how does a whole state react when a state legalizes marijuana? Do their citizens react well? What is the overall democratic numbers that comes from smoking marijuana? Overall, I would say a state reacts very favorably. Of course, the state's going to tax marijuana. What state wouldn't tax marijuana? It's a drug. They're going to tax it. And so far, every single state that's taxed marijuana, and of course has it legalized, has gotten quite a bit of revenue. Using Colorado as an example, they put a 15% tax on marijuana, and they ended the year of 2018 with $270 million, according to MarketWatch. That's quite a lot of money. And with that money, they can do anything they want to, such as improving education, improving roads, promoting welfare programs, or any other number of things that require money. It's it's also been generally accepted, though, that um, teenage uses of marijuana has been really bad, such as a dependency on the drug. However, using Colorado as an example again, the number of teens that have been smoking marijuana have dropped significantly since its legalization, according to MarketWatch again. While DARE, an anti-drug organization, has been making several attempts to uh, demonize marijuana, there's been several reporters who have asked them about their research and their claims and their credibility, just to have DARE take down the posts according to drug policy, uh, meaning that all those lies that they have been mentioning are quite wrong. Some people are concerned with marijuana increasing crime rates throughout the states, but has been proven to be quite wrong. While crime rates have gone up in areas that have legalized marijuana, crimes have also gone up in areas that have also not legalized weed, meaning there's not really a connection there to be found. While marijuana use is rising, crime rate is rising, but also as marijuana rate is down, crime rate is also rising, meaning that marijuana is not a factor in crime rate, meaning there's absolutely no cause for correlation. However, a really good benefit of marijuana being legalized, at least in a drug world, um, in areas where marijuana is legal, less more police can switch their focus from cracking down on marijuana crimes to focusing on more violent crimes, meaning that more violent crimes are being solved than before. Uh, I would much rather, I personally would much rather have a murderer get caught and uh, be thrown in jail than a person who's just smoking weed getting arrested. That I feel like there's a very obvious statement of a priority: someone smoking weed or a murderer, and police would choose between the two. Now, since marijuana is legalized, they only have one option to go after, and that's the more violent crimes. Overall, marijuana has had great results on an individual level and on a state level. But there is one bill that will have every single state benefit from from marijuana, and that bill is called the MORE Act. What it would do is that it would legalize marijuana on a federal level for both recreational and medical use. It would also force prisons across the country to free people who have been in jail for taking marijuana. So this is going to overturn every single state's outlaw of marijuana, making it on the same level as tobacco and alcohol. This is going to be great. Everybody will have access to this drug. There's not a bad thing about that. It's also going to impose a 5% federal tax on all marijuana grown or sold or manufactured, imported, any various amount of things in the U.S. The amount of revenue the U.S. is going to gain from that is quite undetermined, but across 50 states, that could be quite a bit of income right there, and we all know that the United States needs more money. I have explained many things about marijuana, such as how smoking marijuana affects an individual person, how the legalization of marijuana has affected a whole state, and a brief description of what the MORE Act does and how it will benefit the United States. The MORE Act will allow every single person to have a choice if they take the substance or not, and the only way that we can ensure that the MORE Act passes is if you notify your congresspeople. that you want this bill to pass. Not all Democrats want this bill. Not all Republicans do dislike this bill, and it's up to you as an individual to talk to to message your senator and or message your representative and tell them, hey, this is something that I want. I need you to do this. I need you to approve this for me. Thank you for your time and attention.